All right, so we're going to move forward with the keynote speaker. As we've gone through the day, we've touched on a lot of the pillars as we've talked about. So Erica laid out the pillars at the beginning of the day, and we've talked about them throughout all of the sessions. I'm super excited to have this keynote speaker. I've had the opportunity to hear her speak before, and she's incredible. And it's really awesome to have someone from our travel industry do our keynote speaking for us at the Spring Symposium. So we're really touching on something that's close to our heart as we're talking about business transformation and change management. So we really feel like this touches on all of the pillars that we've talked about today: people and culture, innovation and technology, shareholder value, and operational excellence. These pillars will continue to guide us, and they'll continue to guide how we service our clients and partner with all of our incredible partners. So I'm thrilled to introduce our keynote speaker. She is the president of the American Hotel and Lodging Foundation, which works across the full spectrum of the hotel industry in support of a stronger, more equitable hotel workforce. Anna has a long career in social impact and nonprofit leadership, mobilizing communities around the world to inspire and advance change. We really felt like she was the perfect person to help us usher in this new world travel era. So please help me welcome to the stage Anna Blue, president of AHNLA. Thank you, Anna.
Hi, everybody. All right, I know I'm at the end. You are like 75 emails behind at least. You have like a dozen unread text messages. Keep your phones away. Hold on a few more minutes. I promise we're going to have a lot of fun up here. Let me grab the clicker. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm saying. All right. If you are not familiar, the American Hotel and Lodging Association is the business side of the hotel industry that represents all segments of the industry: owners, management companies, brands, suppliers, you name it, we work in that. The foundation represents the people. So we focus on the workforce, recruitment, retention, advancement of the industry's workforce. We do a lot around anti-human trafficking. So we work on a number of issues that really support the people, just so you have some background. It has nothing to do with what I'm talking about today, by the way. So this is going to be fun. All right, so we say the word change a lot, right? Like, we say this word all the time. And actually, as I was going through my presentation, I realized that what's about to happen is by the end of this, like, the word change isn't even going to sound the same anymore because I'm about to say it so many times. So just get ready. It's going to be like, stop saying that. It's a good thing it's not a drinking game because none of us would survive. Okay, so how do we say it? We say times have changed, right? This is a throwback to the olden days. Times have changed. Things aren't the way that they used to be. I feel like and we're not talking politics, I promise, but like with the world today and some of the stuff that we're all exposed to, like, we're saying that a lot. Like, this isn't how it used to be. Times have changed. It's like what it used to be, what felt good, and now things are different. We say be the change. Like, you are powered. You can actually help create change. You can be the change that you want to see. You can go out there. You can do something if you don't like the way that things are. We say we've had a change of heart. We're getting to the emotional piece. And as I was thinking about this, I was wondering, like, do we mean something different when we say a change of heart versus we've changed our mind? Like, is the brain and the heart different? I was literally just thinking about this out there. Is one more the logical and one is more the emotional? So now start to pay attention to that, like when you use those words, and then get back to me, because we're going to keep talking about this. Changing of the guard, usually a leadership change. We're going to talk about some of that. So the old is out and the new is in. There's been a changing of the guard. We had to put this one up. The change, right? Women, you all know what I'm talking about. Men, you do too. You're just like, oh geez. So what's really funny about this one is that, like, with all of the ways that we say the word change, all of the types of change we talk about, this is the change, right? Like, that's how much power women have in their uterus. The change. All right. I have a gender equity background. It's going to keep coming up. All right, so on that note, I'm going to give you a little bit about my journey. Anybody who, like, has met me at a hotel conference and then looks me up on LinkedIn, they're like, what? Like, how did you get here? Like, I don't even understand, with your background, how you ended up in the hotel industry. So talk about change. I'm going to walk you through that a little bit. So this is what my career has looked like. It is not that straight line where like, I got this job and then I got promoted and then I went to this company and now I'm doing this. I have been all over the place, really, so it's mostly this. This is actually my career, but this is not pretty. Like I've quit, I've been fired, all the things. I've started a completely new career. So I've done a lot of different things, but we're gonna go back to the pretty one. All right, so there are some key moments that signified change for me. Change in how I thought about things, what I thought I knew, changes in my career. So I'm going to talk through just 4 of them. We all have lots of pivotal moments. I'm not going to drag you through my whole life story. Whenever people say, where are you from? Even though you're not supposed to actually say where you were born, you're supposed to say like where you live, where you came from to be in this room. But I always like to start that with, well, I was born on a hippie commune in Canada. Because nobody is ever expecting that answer, but it's true. I was born on a hippie commune in Canada. So change has been in my life from the beginning. We can talk about that later. All right. So I moved to DC to go to college. I live in DC. I, like many young people who moved to Washington, DC, was like, I'm going to run for Congress. And I'm so grateful every day that I did not do that. Right? But I did go into politics, because that's what you do. You graduate from college in DC, and you either go to law school and then become a lobbyist, or you just go into politics. And so I did the whole DC circuit. I worked for a trade association. I worked for a nonprofit on the advocacy side. I worked for a corporate lobbying shop. I worked on a ton of different issues across the board: telecom, healthcare, child rights advocacy. I worked on all these different things, and then I got the opportunity to go work on Capitol Hill. Pretty cool thing. If you're from DC, that's not that cool. Everybody's done it. But if you're not, you're like, oh, that's cool. So I go, and I have an opportunity to go work for a senator. And I'm in my mid-20s and really excited to have this opportunity. I've got my little badge. I actually just saw my badge the other day. You're supposed to turn it in when you leave to the Sergeant at Arms, but I still have mine. It says 2007 really big on it, and I don't think that will get me into the Capitol. So they don't have anything to worry about. But I am on the Hill. I'm working for a senator from Nebraska. I am not from Nebraska, so I have a lot to learn. I have a lot to learn about agriculture and some of the issues that are impacting that state in particular. The senator is a good guy, and I define that not by our political ideologies. Some of the things he supported, I supported. Some of the things he supported, I didn't. That's normal. Well, it used to be normal. But every week on Thursday, he was back on a plane. He was back in Nebraska. He came back on Mondays. He was with the constituents. I remember one day, the senator was in his 60s. One day, a gentleman comes in, and he says, I know this is ridiculous, but I actually went to kindergarten with the senator. And the senator hears this, comes out of his office, looks at the man, and was like, Bill? And I thought, holy cow, like I don't remember somebody I met yesterday. This was just really impressive. There's also not a lot of people in Nebraska, so it probably makes it easier. But I was so blown away by this. So I preface this story with saying the person that I'm about to talk about is also a good person. We've had many conversations. We are still in touch. But at the time, I worked for the chief of staff. And please don't Google him. No hate mail, he's a good guy. So I had been up there for about 4 months. I'm attending meetings, I'm listening to the issues, I want to learn, I want to be able to contribute, to talk to constituents, to talk to lobbyists, know what I'm talking about. And so one day, probably 4 or 5 months in, we're having a conversation, I feel good about what I know, and so I contribute to the conversation, like we all do, okay? This was not a groundbreaking moment. This was not the pivotal moment. I contributed to the conversation, we walk out, I don't even think about it. The chief of staff pulls me aside, and he said, Anna, I think there might be some confusion. I don't invite you to these meetings to contribute, to speak. I invite you to these meetings to be like a chair, to look pretty and just sit. Ouch, right? So now I can look back on that moment and think about, and I have many, many times thought about all of the things I wish I had said or done in that moment. But think about it, I'm 25 probably, and I'm a mom, I'm a single parent, I can't actually like quit my job and walk out, right? I can't respond that way. I can't challenge him to a duel. Those days are over. So what did I do? What do you do when you're 25 and somebody does this? I cried, yes, I did do that. I stopped speaking. I did what I was told. I went into meetings, I listened, I thought about all the things that I had to say, and I didn't say them. And in that time, I don't think this is some big life-changing thing, but as I've gone on in my career, I think back to 25-year-old Anna a lot. I think about all the things that I could have said, all the things that I could have contributed to a conversation if I wasn't expected to just be a chair, all the things that I could have learned if I was allowed to be part of the conversation. Fast forward a few years, it's 2008. Okay, again, we are not talking about politics. So whatever you believe, I went to work, I had the opportunity to go work for Obama for America. And no matter what your political ideologies are, we're not having that conversation, it was a groundbreaking campaign. No campaign had ever been run the way that Obama's campaign would run. And I will say that Trump absolutely capitalized and expanded on the things that were laid in place. This is a new generation of campaigning in politics. Barack Obama was actually the first presidential candidate to ever send a tweet, right? Twitter was created in 2006. Like, that was amazing. That was groundbreaking. He was like being a man of the people. And now, like, politicians don't shut up on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. So I'm out there. I've been in politics for about 8 years. I think I know a lot of stuff. I'm cool. I was a lobbyist. I know a lot of people. I worked for a senator. I'm super cool, right? And now I'm standing at people's doorways realizing I don't know anything. I am, for the first time in my career in politics, talking to real people who don't live in Washington, D.C., about real issues that have impacted them, about why they vote. And it's changing everything that I think I know about politics. Bills that I had worked on, legislation that I was involved in, now I'm hearing the intended and the unintended consequences of those pieces of legislation. Things that are these theoretical discussions that happen on Capitol Hill, and there's data and all of this stuff, and you just make these decisions, and they're affecting real lives. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. So the election is over. I get an opportunity. I get asked to come and work in the White House, an amazing opportunity, and I turned it down. And I turned it down because I realized I couldn't go back to the ivory tower of DC politics. I actually needed to be with people. I needed to know how people felt and what people needed and what people wanted. I needed to be able to make real change that impacted real people. So I made a complete career change, left everything I knew about politics. Super fun when you do that. I took a massive pay cut. I went to, and you don't make a lot of money on campaigns, so we're talking oh geez. And I went into the nonprofit world, and I have since spent my time in nonprofit leadership. I've worked in urban education. I've worked in gender equity. I've worked with tech companies on child safety online, on combating child sexual abuse and exploitation. So I've had this opportunity to work across many, many different issues with communities all over the world. And it's really been amazing. And it was that moment, that campaign, that was the moment of change for me. That was a big pivot. But it's not all sunshine and roses. We think about nonprofits, you think about social impact, they're the ones out there. We get called lots of names, but it's you're what you care about is a cause, and it's great, and this is wonderful. Whew, it is usually one step forward and 50 steps backwards. But I worked in gender equity. I had the privilege of working for the United Nations Foundation, running a global movement for gender equity that was based on Gen Z. It was based on helping young people get the skills and the training they need to become advocates in their communities for gender equity. It was amazing. Then I was courted away over about 9 months of conversations with an organization that also does gender equity. A woman that is very, very well known. Her face is all over things. Her name is all over things. Again, please don't Google. And so I was like, oh, this is great. She wanted me to come and build a whole segment of business. And this was a really incredible opportunity. It was also a wake-up call. Because what I realized is that not all people in social impact believe in the things that they say that they're fighting for. There is, especially with the rise of social media, the amount of performative activism that exists. So I am a person who does this work because I actually believe in it. I have given up a lot to do this work a number of times. And so to be with somebody who runs a gender equity organization, who is quoted, who's on television, who's doing all of these things, who does not believe that women should take maternity leave, who does not believe that equal pay is realistic for corporate America, who is a bully, who treats people horribly. We were traveling one time and she didn't want to spend the money. Not that we didn't have the money, but she didn't want to spend the money for staff to have hotel rooms, even share a hotel room. She put 7 people in a room with a king bed. 7 women in a room with a king bed. One slept in the bathtub, I kid you not. One slept in the bathtub, a few slept on the floor, and as many as could fit in the bed slept in the bed. This is not somebody who has built her career and her brand on gender equity, who believes in the power of women. And so I walked away. I got off of Zoom one night, I walked upstairs to the dining room, I looked at my husband and said, yeah, so on Monday I'm quitting, and I hope that's okay. And he had been on this journey with me, so obviously he understood, and he's like, all right, we'll figure it out. And so that is exactly what I did. What I thought was this amazing dream job, I learned that I actually needed to take a step back, that I actually needed to walk away. And I had the privilege to be able to do that, and I recognize not everybody has that. But it was just a moment for me to say, okay, 20 years in, who am I? We just work and we work and we work and we take jobs and we think how many times do you drive and the stuff that you're thinking about is a whole life that you'll never have, right? If I won the $8 billion lottery, the first thing I would do is this, and then I would do this. Or if I was famous and had a platform, I would do this. So who did I want to be? I took about 4 months and I looked at jobs, not even to apply to them at first, but just to say what am I even interested in? What do I want to do? And I realized that I was fortunate to be doing a lot of what I wanted to do. Social change was still very much at the heart of who I was, but I needed to do it in a way that I believed in. I couldn't work for a company that said all of these things but didn't actually value any of them. This is not how much money I make. I work in nonprofits, but in all of this time, so okay, we've talked about all of this. Again, hotels. Doesn't this all sound like I should be in the hotel industry? Nope. So we work with a lot of companies. We've actually worked with a lot of companies that are here. When I was at Girl Up and with other organizations, we had a lot of partners. Some partners that we loved, some that were not so great. But I realized that to really make change, the grassroots movements are great. If you are a person who likes to show up at a protest or on a picket line, hats off. We all have control over what we support by how we use our dollars. That's amazing. There are a lot of ways to create change. But if I was going to create change for a living, then I needed to go where there is influence, decision makers, access to money and resources. Because asking for money for 20 years is really exhausting. So to be on the side of having all of these things, to be able to have an opportunity to pool the resources of an entire industry, an entire ecosystem of hospitality, to bring all of that together to say we, as an industry, stand against human trafficking, and here are the resources that we're going to put into that. We, as an industry, believe in the equitable advancement of our people, and here are the resources that we're going to put into that. I have been able to make real, meaningful change in the past 15 months in this role, more so than in almost any job I've ever had, because I have access to the CEOs. I have access to the decision makers. They don't all agree with me. That's fine. But they're willing to hear me out. They're willing to have the conversation. And some of them are even willing to say, you know what? I don't know if you're right or if you're full of shit, but I'm going to give it a shot. And here's a check. I'll take it. So for me, these key moments of change, all of them were a challenge. All of them were met with hardship. but that is how I got here. So I wanted to just level set so you're not like, what is she talking about and how are we not talking about hotels? All right, so now we're going to talk about change. Now we're going to say that word a whole bunch. So change is a constant thing, and even when the environment around changes, so we're going to keep saying the word, the concept of change does not. Change is change. It is what it is, right? No matter what it is, no matter how good or how bad, any of those things, change is hard. So you think about like those good moments where you don't often think about change as being really hard, right? You marry your soulmate. Amazing. Change is hard, right? 1 in 10 marriages fail in the first year. 50% of marriages fail, and the number one reason cited is change. I changed and she didn't, or he didn't. He changed or she changed too much. That's the number one reason cited. So even in those beautiful moments, having a baby, starting a family, that is a beautiful thing. How many of you here had a baby and didn't feel like it was hard at all? Right. Like becoming a parent, it's a beautiful change, but it's a big change. So whether it's at work, in your personal relationships, wherever it is, environmental, political, all of those things, change is hard. But I'm not going to talk about everybody's personal life, so we're going to talk specifically about the workplace. So leadership change in policies, employee or reporting change, a building change. When I first got to the United Nations Foundation, we were moving entire buildings about 2 months later, and that was a huge change, right? So all of those things equate to change. So there are usually hard factors and soft factors that are at play, and this is going to come back again when we think about change. And whether you are leading it or you are one being dragged along with it, whatever it is, these are some of the things that come into play. So according to the Harvard Business Review, and I've heard there are some smart people at Harvard, these are referred to as the DICE factors, because everybody loves a good acronym. I was trying to think about this. Somebody can Google this for me. What is it called when an acronym spells a word? Anybody know? Like, this is DICE. Like, we're AHLA, and people like try to pronounce us Allah. Please don't do that. We are not that, so let's just be careful. But anyway, Google that, because I was trying to think of what it was. All right, so DICE factors, the duration. How much time is this change going to take? What does that process look like? Understanding the timeline, what is expected of people along the way, how much change in process will be required. Integrity, this one shows up everywhere. The commitment and the reliability of the people involved, right? And that goes right into commitment. So how many times has the word innovation been said today? Like, we hear it all the time. Innovation is change. It's just a fancy word, a way of saying change, right? So innovation is finding new ways of doing things, new structures, all of those things. So, but we have lots of ideas. Like, if I could just sit around and come up with ideas and then other people would do them, that would be great, and I would do that all day long. So most of the ideas that we have for change don't ever actually happen, right? So what is the actual commitment that this organization has to seeing this change through? How many times have you been part of like a change that started and then stopped? And then you're just like kind of hanging there, and it is somewhere in the middle. I see some nods, like you've been through this. So the commitment to actually do the work, get through the hard stuff, and see it through for implementation. And then the effort. That's a big one. How much time, capacity, will it take to implement this change? It's not just like you drop it and it's done. Like, you actually, and people are working at the same time, and we're going to go through an exercise about that later that I'm super excited about. Like, you're doing your job while everything around you is changing. That's a lot of fun. So what is the effort that is actually required to effectively get through this? Then you have the soft factors. It's like the hard skills and soft skills. We like to talk about this. So these complement those hard factors. There's no fancy acronym for them. This is the human side of change, the human side of change management. The relationships, all of those pieces. There's a lot more of these because humans are complicated. We require a lot more than processes. So leadership and communication, effective leadership makes a difference. You want to make sure that there is actually a person that is leading through the process, that's dealing with all of the aspects of change, the things that come up, and is communicating it. Culture and values. Does this change actually align with your organization? Does it align with your organizational culture? Does where you're going make sense for who you are as a company? Employee engagement. As I said, people have lots of ideas. You know what else people have? A lot of opinions. But that's really helpful. We tend to be far more bought into something that we have had, that we've been engaged in, right? If we can help build it, chances are we can be more engaged with it. And I'll give you a great example of a time where this was not the case. So I started an organization, and shortly after being there, it was announced that it was sort of an organization that oversaw many organizations, that 3 of the organizations were now going to be in a completely different department and report to somebody else. And we were all told this at the same time. And one of the heads of the smaller organization said, well, I just don't understand. It would have been really helpful to be part of this process, to have been told about this before. And the executive vice president who was making this decision, or who had made this decision, looked at him and said, well, we just figured we shouldn't waste your time getting your input when you had no say in it. So that went over really well. They're besties. And so that's hard to hear. How bought in do you think that guy was after that? Not very. He complained until the day he walked out the door for another job. And it is in those moments of feeling engaged, feeling like your voice has been heard, it makes a difference. Does everybody have the training and development they need? Like, can we follow through on this? Like, do they have the skills in order for this change to take place? And then feedback. Again, we have lots of opinions. So along the way, we can't take everything that everybody says. Nobody can do that. No leader can do that. But that doesn't mean people don't have good ideas. So where do you put in those moments for feedback and then be willing to adapt based on the ideas that are good? And then the emotional intelligence piece. It is proven that leadership teams, or teams that have a high level of emotional intelligence, are able to adapt to change better. And that's really because they lead with more empathy. They're able to cope with the things that make them uncomfortable. So having the emotional intelligence, do you have all of these things? So there's a lot of debate, as there is about most things online, about which is more important. If you are a leader and you're implementing change, do you have time and capacity to lean into all of those things? So what matters more? Which ones should you care about? And sadly, I would say it is actually all of them. It's the balance. You need to be able to connect with the people, to bring them in, to bring them along the way, but you also need the processes, the timelines, all of those things to really, truly have change be effective. So, good or bad, change is hard, right? We've already learned that everywhere. And in fact, and we just talked about this with marriage, so about 50 to 70% of organizational change fails. And that number is based on the type of change that it is. Some change in an organization has a higher success rate, others have a higher failure rate. 50 to 70% of change that we try to implement in our companies, in our organizations, fails. That's huge. Why? Why is change so hard? Here's why. This guy. Nobody knows who that is, but also her, and that lady, this chick, this guy, him, me, you, all of you. Change fails because of people. We are typically the reason that change fails. I don't know if you've ever been online, but people are really resistant to things that make them uncomfortable. Things that are unknown or new or not the way they think or the way that they believe. People don't inherently like change. We think it's a great idea. There's so many good things that come out of change, but when it actually starts to happen, we don't always know how to deal with the uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable. So we are typically the reason that change fails. There is a huge resistance to change. We're going through it right now. I have an amazing leadership team. We're not recording this, are we? Okay. I have a great leadership team who always like, well, we need to change this, and we need to change this, and we need to change this. And when we start to change it, oh gosh, don't change that, right? There is a resistance to change because change is messy. So according to Rick Moorer, and I suggest if you aren't familiar with this, you look it up, it's pretty cool. There are 3 reasons for resistance to change. I don't get it, right? It's not understanding, maybe disagreeing, but typically not understanding, why do we have to change this? Why does this need to change? Why is it happening? When is it happening? Who is it happening to? What does it mean? So you start to already push back because you just don't fully understand. You don't have all the information, you don't get it. I don't like it. Nope. Nope. I don't like it, I don't understand it, and because I don't understand it, I don't like it, automatically, right? What the emotional reaction to being uncomfortable about something is to shut it down. That's what happens. And when that happens, it like taps into our primal survival instincts, like I don't get it, I don't like it. But when then that happens, I don't like you. You are the person that wants to change this. You are now my enemy. I don't know why you're doing this to me. And it may not even be a personal thing, like I don't like you as a person, right? It's like I don't trust you. I don't trust that you can effectively lead this. I don't trust that you know what you're talking about and that this change is right. I don't get it, and then because I don't get it, I don't like it, and because I don't like it, I don't like you for doing it. How easy is it to make change after that? Not very easy, but this is what automatically happens. All right, so now we're gonna have some fun. So how does change feel? There's a lot of things that we say around change to make people feel better. And having come into a new role in a new industry just 15 months ago, I've heard these 2 sayings a lot, right? We're building the plane while we're flying it. How many of you have heard that or said it? Yeah, it happens a lot, right? We're building a plane, we're flying it. So we're gonna change while we're doing all the other things, and we're all gonna be okay because we're just like doing it. And it's actually said to make you feel better about it. Oh, we're all in this together, right? Or we're just drinking from a fire hose right now. How many of you have heard that one? Yep, I heard that a lot when I got to AHLA Foundation. And it's sort of like, okay, but also maybe we just slow down a little bit so that I don't feel that. But again, we come up with these things to make people feel like this is normal. That like you being completely overwhelmed is okay because you're drinking from a fire hose. No. All right, so we're gonna look at those for a second, and I found these 2 videos. But I will say the resolution of them is terrible. You'll be able to see it enough, but like, don't judge me. All right, let's play this first one.
Some people like to climb mountains. I like to build planes in the air.
I grew up wanting to be on a wing, wanting to be up this high.
Sometimes the temperature up at altitude will reach 60 below. It's brisk, it's refreshing.
You never know what you're going to come across up here. Canadian geese, mallards,
owls. These people back here, that's why I come to work. That's why I build airplanes in the sky.
We're not just building a plane here. We're building a dream.
I love this job.
I get a lot of thanks up here. When I look over there and I see that little kid, and the look in his eyes, that's all the thanks I need.
So yeah, how many of you would get on a plane that was still being built? Right? But we say it to make people feel better. All right, we're gonna go.
Some people like.
Nope. Oh, I can start it. All right. Drinking from a fire hose. This is actually funny because if you'll notice the context of which this video was created, and this was actually to teach people who don't speak English what drinking from a fire hose means. Oh wait, just kidding. Okay, I'm gonna let you play.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A fire hose releases huge amounts of water to help put out fires. So why would someone be drinking from a fire hose?
So how has work training been going, Dan? I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose. 10 hours straight every single day is a lot.
Wow, things sure are different from when I started. Back then, training was more like drinking from a little small straw.
Wow, must have been nice. That sounds a lot easier.
If someone says they are drinking from a fire hose, they feel overwhelmed. They don't feel like they can keep up with everything they must do or learn. And that's English in a minute.
All right. Because truthfully, why would you drink from a fire hose, right? Like, you wouldn't. But these are, again, things that we say to make people feel like this is normal. But when you really think about them, like, nothing about that is normal. Nothing about that is something we would choose to do. All right, I have gotten a volunteer right over here. Come on up. We're going to do something fun. Are you in heels? How comfortable do you feel moving in heels? Okay, great. All right. So we're going to very quickly talk about what change actually feels like. And I love a good balloon. All right, so what is your name?
Tracy.
Tracy. Who are you with? Tell people who you are.
Oh, everyone knows who I am.
Oh, everybody. Okay. All right.
I'm with Zone Medical.
Fantastic. All right, so you, come on over. You are ambitious. What is your career goal? It doesn't even have to be with your company. Like, what is that thing you're like, I would love to be that? What is it? Like, what is your career goal?
I kind of just got it.
Okay, well, this won't work if you just got
well,
it.
I want to be the best that I can be in the job that I'm doing right now. All right, help me out, sister. Come on.
Hold on, let me think if this will work.
Oh, hell no.
Okay. Amen to that. All right. No, but that's good. You want to be the absolute best that you can be in the job that you're doing. All right?
Correct.
This is that goal. Keep it up. Don't let it drop because it's your goal. You got to treat it with care. We can't let it drop. You can't let it pop. Please don't walk off the back of the stage.
Okay.
I think people would be mad at me. Okay, and now.
I think I know where this is going.
Yes, exactly. But now things are changing. Here comes change. Oh, yeah. So please don't do that. You got to keep that up.
That happened to somebody else before.
You want to take them off?
Okay.
Okay.
Not gonna drop.
All right. There we go. Okay, now we're going to be safe. All right, so now you have to help manage change. And managing change is like a lot of thoughts and feelings and opinions, right? So you got to keep those up too. Yep. So now you're what already started to happen? She's only got one other thing, and all of a sudden.
Clearly, I cannot juggle more than one ball at a time.
All right, and you're a decision maker, so you got to manage all the thoughts and feelings. You got to keep those up in the air because you can't lose all your employees. And you have to collect all the information you need. Uh-oh, you dropped your employees. You got to get all the information you need.
I hope you guys are enjoying this.
All right. You got to deal with all the confusion. You dropped your employees again. You got to keep the employees up. Okay. So now you're trying to keep your goal. You want to be the best. You got to keep that up. But also, we're going to deal with reality. You're a woman in the workplace, correct?
Yes, I am.
All right. So here's your imposter syndrome.
Okay.
Right? Because everybody in the workplace says that in order for us to achieve equity, we have to work on ourselves. So there's your imposter syndrome. Yep. You got to keep your family up because you're also responsible for 80% of caregiving. Oh. So yeah, you dropped your kids. There's your husband. Careful.
Oh, husband?
Or wife. Don't drop your kids. You got to keep your kids up. All right. So what?
The idea.
Right. So this is what happens. Thank you. But don't go too far because we're going to bring you back up.
Okay.
All right. So what happens to your job, to your goal, to you being able to be the best what did I do with the clicker? Oh, Lord. Okay. That you want to be. What happens to this mythical work-life balance that we're all supposed to have? What happens to all of the professional development, all the things that we need to do? What happens to your ability to achieve your goal, to keep that thing, to get that promotion, to be the best that you can be when you're trying to juggle all of these different parts of change, in addition to all the things you're juggling anyway? But despite this, change is good. It's inevitable. We already talked about how we say, you know, how much times have changed, right? It is constant. It is never ending. Change is good. We have all seen change. We see it on a daily basis. Think about your childhood. Think about the childhood of your children. How similar are they, right? Things have changed. They change considerably all the time. But if done correctly, now we've talked about that a little bit, with buy-in and transparency and maybe some like ice cream and free PTO days, change can be really effective and it can be good. I've been going through a lot of it myself coming into this industry. Coming from a background in like social justice activism, social change, being on the front line, being in gender equity in particular, like there was a moment, my very first week was at the American Lodging Investment Summit. It's like 4,000 hoteliers in Los Angeles, California. It was my very first week on the job. And I walk out of our AHLA meeting room and it looks down to the lobby. And I literally saw nothing but like white guys in blue suits. I don't know if men get an email saying, here's the dress code, but like blue blazers are a thing. And I look down and I'm coming from like TED Women and Fortune's Most Powerful Women and like all of these spaces where I know the conversations that are gonna happen and I know what that energy looks like. And I looked down and I was like, whoa, I might have made a really big mistake. I don't know that this industry is for me. And that was a change within myself of like, how do I keep my authentic self? How do I stay exactly who I am and be in a completely different world? That change was hard. Because what was interesting for me and what I've really reflected on a lot over the past year is that a lot of gender equity work in particular, that's what I know, so I'll just speak to that. It's like research and data, and we hear stories, and then we gather in these safe spaces and we talk about them and we share them and we learn, and that's wonderful and we need that. And I've been in some really incredible rooms with some really incredible people. But moving into an industry where it's real, where those inequities, those statistics, those things that I've been talking about for a decade, I'm now seeing them play out, and I'm experiencing them. And I'm seeing that 6% of hotel CEOs are women, and what that actually looks like, and what boardrooms look like. And it was jarring for me to go from this like theoretical space to like, wow, we really are a lot further back than I thought we were. And managing that change for myself has been tough. I'm still here, I'm not going anywhere. We're doing a lot of good. But change creates really amazing opportunities. There are lessons learned. If you are open to it and you can move past the I don't get it, I don't like you piece, you can learn lessons, you can form a new perspective. Sometimes that perspective is like, nope. And like, nope can be a perspective. Like I tried, I moved past what was uncomfortable, and this still doesn't actually work. This is still not right. Not all change is right, no matter how much you try to get on board. There's creativity involved, new ways of doing things, which people don't always like. I find that the people who say we can't just do the same thing we've always done are often the most resistant to change. Because again, like saying it and doing it are two different things. There's innovation, there's that word again. It brings out your strengths. You can form new relationships, there's a lot of great things. Motivation, you develop resilience. Resilience is huge, especially today. And ultimately, all of that can lead to growth. Change can be good. All right, so what's next? And then you're gonna come back up and we're gonna finish with the balloons. So if you are leading change, we're gonna go back to some of the hard stuff and the soft stuff. If you are leading change, you can turn that resistance into support with just a few things. Find multiple ways to make your case. Not everybody receives information the same way. Some people want to see it written, they want the whole plan, they want to go through it, they want to mark it up and highlight things, and like if you give me paper, I throw it away. Like I'm not one of those people. I could read about the best change in the world and I won't be bought in because that's not how I receive information. Some people want to hear it, some people want to see a video, some people want you to sit down and have coffee with them and have a conversation, allow them to ask questions. Everybody processes information differently, and that's hard, but if you want it to move along smoothly, you gotta say it in multiple ways. You gotta communicate in different ways. It can't just be a memo, please. Remove as much fear as you can. Help people understand what this means for them. Oftentimes, that's really what it comes down to. Like, how is this gonna affect me? How much more work is this gonna cause for me? Or does this mean my job is being eliminated? Or does this mean you're going to have to hire above me? Am I going to have a new manager? People want to understand and are fearful of what this means for them. And then rebuild damaged relationships. And I'll be honest, I'm doing a little bit of that now. I came in with all of these ideas. I'm the first person with a nonprofit background to run this nonprofit. So there were a lot of things that truthfully were just like made no sense. So I came in and I changed a lot of things and realized how hard that's been for a lot of people. And I had a conversation just this week with somebody on my communications team, and I was like, you know what? If I had known when I hired you last June what I know now, I would have done things differently. And that's a great thing to acknowledge. Like, we're not perfect. I am not the world's best and most amazing leader. I am a work in progress. And so being able to have that conversation like, oh yeah, I could have done that better. I could have done that differently, and repair some of those damaged relationships that can happen along the way. All right, if you're on the other side and change is happening around you and people are building planes and spraying you with a fire hose, here are some things that I recommend. Feel your feelings. Like the expectation that we are at work and we're not supposed to care and we're just supposed to power through and accept things. It's okay to feel what you're feeling and to be angry, to feel resistant, but try to unpack why. Why are you feeling that way, and is that something that can be resolved? And then if it is, communicate that. I want to get on board with this. I think that I can believe in this, but here's what I need from you. Oftentimes, employees just wait to see how things settle. Oh, we're going to see how that turns out. He's got that idea. Well, we'll see what happens. Why? Right? Communicate that. For me to get on board with this, this is what I need. Or this is what I need to know. Find the silver lining. They're always there, even in the hard change. Take one step at a time. You don't have to build the plane while flying it. You can push back on that. You can take things one step at a time. And again, that goes back to the communication. If that's what you need to do, communicate that. And don't get too comfortable, because change will come again as soon as everybody settles down. And it's like, yeah, we got through this. We are better for it. I have grown. This is fantastic. Oh, we're going to change again. And that's how it is always going to be. All right, come on back up. Hang on. All right. Right. If only. Okay, I need a couple more people.
Teamwork.
Come on.
Makes the dream work.
There it is. Come on. Come on up. I need like 3 people. Really? You're all just going to sit there? There's 1. There's 2. Thank you. All right, you got to keep that one up. And this one. And your kids. Right. So now we've got transparency coming, and we've got communication coming. I don't even know where the other balloons are. So when you have the support and you have all of these different factors, and we are moving through what's uncomfortable and we are less resistant to change, nothing is dropping. And look, her goal, she can still be her best self. Right? Thank you very much. That is all for me. Thank you all for being a wonderful audience. Thank you for helping out. All right, take your balloon. Thank you very much.